One by one, hands went up in the room. My sister-in-law, Belle, stood there as though she were a judge, grinning as if all of this were just a light-hearted game. She casually framed her question. Should Ayra not be invited to family gatherings? Immediately, hands shot up. My in-laws, cousins, spouses, everyone except for Grandpa Joe. I remained seated, feeling paralyzed, with my son Luca tightly holding on to me. He glanced around with a puzzled expression. His small voice cut through the quiet, asking, "Mom, why are they doing this?" I didn't reply, but forced a smile despite the tears welling in my eyes, stood up and said, "Thanks for dinner." We left with our pride intact. I didn't retaliate, but the following week, a law firm sent each of them a letter. Inside lay information that left them speechless. Sundays changed after my husband Micah passed away. They once brimmed with joy and laughter, kids playing barefoot in the yard, and the aroma of garlic bread wafting from the oven. Grandpa Joe would play classic country tunes from his portable speaker while Belle attempted to turn the volume down. However, after the accident, Sundays turned into the most unbearable silence I had ever experienced. Initially, everyone was supportive. Dinners were regularly delivered to my home. Belle visited with store-bought casseroles and hugs that carried the scent of her lavender perfume. My in-laws, Carol and Robert, urged me to remain close to family. But as time went on, the kindness dwindled. Text messages became brief, calls stopped completely, and invitations faded away. I never got into arguments or made demands. I didn't create scenes. I simply became less helpful. That's when it dawned on me. I was seen not truly as family, but merely as Micah's wife. Without him, I had turned into a reminder of their loss, or perhaps of things they wished to avoid. Yet, Luca kept asking questions. Just 7 when his father died. He was now 10, still carrying Micah's smile, his dimples, and the same quiet way of observing those around him. One day he asked, "Mom, why doesn't Grandma ever call us anymore?" I replied, "Maybe they're just busy or don't know how to talk about Dad." He nodded, but I could see the sadness settle into his small frame. His longing for them was something I couldn't mend, but for his sake, I resolved to make an effort again. So, when Belle unexpectedly messaged me that Thursday, saying, "Family dinner on Sunday, we'd love to see you and Luca," I was taken aback. I reread the message several times, feeling as though it was a trap. However, Luca's face lit up when I shared the news, and that was all I needed to move forward. We reached their home 10 minutes ahead of schedule. The place was immaculate, every toy perfectly in position, resembling a scene from a lifestyle magazine. Belle greeted us at the entrance, beaming and ready to embrace. "You look wonderful," she remarked, leaning her cheek against mine. Her scent reminded me of lavender and composure. Luca dashed inside to start playing, and I took my time to soak in the atmosphere. As I entered the kitchen, Carol hardly acknowledged me. She was busy slicing lemons for iced tea, pretending to be deep in conversation, which conveniently ended the moment I arrived. Meanwhile, Robert nodded in my direction from the den, his eyes glued to the football on TV. No one expressed any pleasure at our arrival. I offered to assist with dinner, received a salad bowl to carry, and quickly found myself excluded from the kitchen chatter. Belle and Carol continued to laugh over jokes I wasn't part of. I smiled regardless. I had learned to put on a bright face over the years in situations where I felt out of place. When the meal was ready, I saw that Luca had already taken his seat at the kids' table. Belle served him first, followed by the others. By the time my turn came around, I had to reach over the serving dishes for a plate. These little moments accumulated. Conversations swirled around me, discussing job promotions, school news, and travel plans. Not once did anyone seem to check on Luca or me. It felt like we were uninvited guests at a gathering. The only genuine connection I felt was from Grandpa Joe. Though he moved with the aid of a cane now, his presence remained solid. He settled next to me and passed the bread basket. "I'm happy you came," he said softly. "Luca needs to know he still belongs, and you do too, even if they don't realize it yet." A lump formed in my throat as I swallowed. He had an uncanny ability to voice my thoughts precisely when I needed it. I glanced at Luca, who was joyfully chatting with his cousin Levi, his plate stacked with food and his eyes shining with enthusiasm. He didn't perceive the tension I felt. He didn't sense how the energy changed when I entered a space. He remained a child, trusting others and believing the best in them, and I desperately wanted to protect that innocence. So, I continued to smile, stayed silent, and assured myself I could manage just one dinner. However, the ensuing moment was bound to shatter that silence and lay bare everything I had tried so hard to overlook. The event unfolded right after dessert. We remained at the long table, plates littered with crumbs and glasses filled halfway. The children had dashed off to the basement, and for a brief moment, I thought I might have made it through the evening unscathed. That's when Belle rose from her seat. She tapped her glass with a spoon, and everyone turned to look at her as if they'd rehearsed it. I assumed she was about to announce something important or share family news. I straightened up and forced a smile. Then she spoke. We need to address the tension in our family." She delivered it as if she were doing everyone a service, complete with a dramatic sigh and a glance at her husband for backup. With a feigned air of concern, she scanned the table. I know I'm not the only one sensing this awkwardness, and it's crucial that we talk about its source. At first, her words confused me. Nobody looked my way, yet I felt the weight of it. A tightness gripped my chest. "I'm not trying to create drama," she added, "but it's clear that since Ayra has come back, things haven't felt quite right." That was the first moment she mentioned my name, making it sound as if I were an outsider, as if I weren't even present. "I don't want to downplay what you've been through," she said, turning to me. "We all mourned Micah. We all cared about him. But we've also had to keep moving forward. And it seems some feel like they're tiptoeing around. Some of us—" I glanced around the table. Carol avoided my gaze. Robert reclined in his chair with his arms crossed. A few cousins fidgeted, acting busy with their silverware. Then Belle smiled, a smile I will always remember. "So, I thought we could just take a vote. No hard feelings, just a show of hands. Should Ayra be uninvited from future family gatherings, for the sake of peace?" For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. It felt surreal, as if I had stepped outside my body. Then it began. One hand, Rose, Carol's, then another, Robert's. Next, Levi's mom, followed by his dad. Even those I hadn't talked to all night, even those who appeared indifferent, raised their hands. Every hand went up except Grandpa Joe's. I struggled to breathe, feeling the color drain from my face. My ears buzzed with a ringing noise. Suddenly, I felt a gentle tug on my sleeve. It was Luca. He had come back from the basement, most likely, to ask for another piece of cake. Instead, he'd stumbled into this situation. He glanced around, bewildered, then turned to me. "Mom," he said quietly, "why are they doing this?" That shattered me. Not due to a lack of answers, but because I had one, I just couldn't voice it while he was there. I managed to smile despite my trembling lips, reached for his hand, and stood up. "Thanks for dinner," I told the table, my voice soft yet composed. "We should head out now." No one intervened. Not a single person uttered a word as we exited. Grandpa Joe stood and gently placed his hand on my shoulder. "You don't deserve this," he murmured. I nodded once and continued walking. Gripping Luca's hand tightly, we made our way to the car. He didn't inquire further, but rested his head on my arm while I buckled him in. The drive home was filled with silence, a heavy silence that settled deep within me. That evening, I remained in the darkness for hours, listening to my son breathe peacefully beside me. I understood that Belle had set up that entire scenario. She had executed it with meticulous planning and taken the time to build it up for months, if not longer. Her intention wasn't for my peace, it was to erase me. And this vote? It was nothing. More than her act, a small display of her authority. I let her have that moment. However, what she didn't realize, and what none of them knew, was that I wouldn't stay quiet indefinitely. I didn't scream, I didn't plead, but I was through with the role of the grieving widow who knew her place. The next move would be mine. The house held a tranquil stillness that night. broken only by the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the sound of Luca's breath next to me. He had fallen asleep, curled into my side, one hand clutching my shirt sleeve as if he feared I might vanish. As I lay there in the dark, my eyes wide open, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment, Belle's voice, the raised hands, and Luca's innocent question, "Why are they doing this?" For many years, I had swallowed my pride for the sake of harmony. I allowed them to marginalize me little by little, convincing myself that remaining silent was the honorable choice, that being quiet was better than creating conflict. But that vote wasn't merely cruel, it was tactical, aimed at humiliating me in front of everyone. It sought to demonstrate to Luca that his mother, who had once held the family together, didn't belong anymore. That was something I could not accept. I quietly got out of bed, making sure not to disturb him. I brewed some tea but didn't drink it. Instead, I opened my laptop and accessed a folder I hadn't visited in years, filled with old text messages, voice notes, and photos. As I skimmed through saved conversations, which I had kept out of routine, messages from Belle that once seemed passive-aggressive now appeared deliberate. One message stood out. "You don't need to attend Luca's recital. It could be uncomfortable. For everyone." Another read, "Carol thinks it's better for you to just drop him off at the party. It'll be simpler for the other kids." It became clear to me how long this distancing had been occurring as I viewed these messages, each one politely suggesting my exclusion over time. I opened my notes application and began jotting down everything. Their decisions without me, the whispered remarks about my parenting, and the vote. I recalled how Belle often said things like, "We all feel a bit uneasy around you because you can be so sensitive." It struck me that this wasn't merely a personal issue. It was a recurring pattern, one I might be able to legally contest. By morning, I had found a law firm specializing in family harassment and damage to reputation. I sent in a request for a consultation. Within a day, I was on a call with Danica Rhodes, a sharp and composed attorney who remained unfazed when I explained my situation. "I doubt they expect you to stand up to them," she remarked. "They don't." I answered, "But I'm not doing this for myself. It's for my son." Danica examined the messages and listened to the audio I hadn't realized was recorded by Luca's smartwatch, which could store voice logs. It captured nearly everything from that evening. Belle proposing the vote, the uncomfortable silence, the moment my name was mentioned, with her precise words being, "She's too weak to fight back anyway." Danica reclined in her chair. "We'll prepare a cease and desist letter, but we'll include supporting documents. We'll clarify that this situation is not just about hurt feelings. It involves intentional harm, a child's exclusion, and emotional manipulation of a minor." I exhaled deeply. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of control. We also discussed the next steps, how to formally limit family members' access to Luca if they created an unsafe emotional atmosphere. This wasn't just a custody dispute. It was a warning. 2 days after, Danica's team sent out the letter. Each member of the family received their own individual sealed version. While it wasn't loud or chaotic, its impact was as powerful as a thunderbolt. Those who had voted for my exclusion suddenly fell silent. The letters were dropped off on Thursday morning, each one professionally signed, sealed, and stamped by Rhodes's and Keene family law, addressed personally to each adult who had raised their hand. I kept the arrivals confidential, not sharing online or sending messages to warn anyone. My routine continued as normal. I prepared breakfast, packed Luca's lunch, and took him to school. Yet, there was an unsettling serenity in my heart, an awareness that an irreversible change had begun. By lunchtime, the phone calls began. First, a missed call from Carol, followed by 2 texts from Robert. "We need to discuss this. This has gone too far." I chose not to respond. At 1:23 p.m., Belle messaged, "Really, a lawyer? What's wrong with you?" Then, 10 minutes later, "You're actually going to disrupt this family over a silly dinner?" I remained silent, fully aware that it wasn't merely about dinner, and she understood that as well. Inside the letter, Danica's words were precise, assertive, and legally accurate. It detailed a consistent pattern of exclusion, emotional manipulation, and intentional humiliation in front of a child. It mentioned specific text messages, times, and direct quotes from the smartwatch recording. The phrase, "she's too weak to fight back," was highlighted in bold. A warning was also included. Should there be any more attempts to isolate Ayra or create a toxic environment for Luca, the next actions would involve filing a formal complaint with Child Protective Services and seeking legal steps to restrict unsupervised access. What struck me the most? The closing lines of the letter. This firm represents a mother who has previously chosen silence to maintain family peace. That silence is no longer a gift she is willing to bestow. Within a day, every individual who had raised their hand had gone quiet. Nobody defended the vote. No one inquired about the authenticity of the recording. They all were aware of their actions. On Friday, a handwritten note appeared in my mailbox. It had no return address, just a folded card. Inside, it was from Carol. "I'm sorry for what transpired. We didn't believe you'd take it this far. Perhaps we were mistaken about you." I read it once and placed it in the drawer beside my wedding ring. Shortly after, Grandpa Joe called me. "Your lawyer really caused some panic," he chuckled. "Belle hasn't said a word since." I replied, "She deserves worse." He nodded. "True, but I'm really proud of you." That weekend, Luca wanted to know if we would visit their house again. I gazed at him, this courageous and sensitive child who had witnessed more harshness in a single night than many adults experience in years. "Not right now, darling," I replied. He nodded, a smile soon crossing his face. "That's fine. Can we go to the beach instead?" "Absolutely," I said. "The beach sounds wonderful." It has been 3 months since we sent that letter. There have been no attempts to arrange another vote, no invitations for us to return, and no apologies. At least not face-to-face. The silence is not only unchanged, it has grown more profound. Yet for the first time in a long time, I feel liberated. There's no waking up fearful of messages or wondering what I might have done. I no longer brace myself for cold stares or veiled remarks, misrepresented as just being honest. I can enter a room without feeling small. Most importantly, Luca is doing well. Better than well. He no longer inquires about his cousins, nor does he check the mailbox for birthday cards that never arrived. We've created new traditions, based not on pleasing those who sought to erase us, but on finding joy with those who truly care. Every Sunday morning, we grab donuts and stroll along the lake trail by our apartment. Luca brings his sketchbook while I take coffee. We sit on a bench that Micah used to take him to when he was little, chatting about school, cartoons, space, whatever he likes. There's no tension, no faking, just tranquility. I've also started attending therapy, which was a new experience for me. I had previously believed that therapy was meant for people who couldn't keep it together. Now I realize it's for those who are managing but don't want to suffer silently. My therapist helped me understand what occurred that night. It wasn't just exclusion, but also emotional abuse, manipulation, and the kind of bullying adults mask with smiles and dinner invitations. She made me see that I wasn't overreacting or losing my mind, and that the vote wasn't a sudden betrayal, but rather the culmination of a long-standing pattern of disrespect. That insight healed a part of me I wasn't even aware was damaged. I no longer feel anger towards them. Each morning, I don't wake up wishing to make them experience the pain they caused me. There's a truth that often goes unmentioned. Healing transforms the desire for revenge into something meaningless. My aim wasn't to destroy their lives. It was to be a mother for my son who embodies true strength. True strength doesn't involve shouting at a group of people who have already made their decisions. It lies in having the confidence to walk away from a situation and still maintain your dignity even after you leave. Some might claim I was being overly dramatic. It was just a vote. However, if you've ever sat quietly in a room full of people who act as if you don't belong, you understand how painful that silence can be. My intention in seeking legal action wasn't for drama. It was about establishing a boundary that words alone couldn't create. I had shown them years of kindness and compassion, hoping they would see me as a person and the mother of their grandchild. Instead, their response was cruelty masked as politeness. They believed my silence indicated weakness, but they were mistaken. I've come to realize another important lesson. Family isn't automatically precious just because of shared blood. Being related by blood does not give anyone the right to treat you poorly. A name or DNA does not justify manipulative behavior. Moreover, loyalty should never mean enduring pain. True family is something you build, choose, and earn through connection. Every Saturday, Grandpa Joe visits. He and Luca play chess, not very well, and enjoy sugar cookies he brings from the local bakery. He never brings up the others, and I don't inquire. Just last week, Luca posed the question, "Do you think they miss us?" I hesitated before replying, "Perhaps, but missing someone doesn't equate to treating them well." He nodded and returned to his coloring. He's growing with more insight than many adults I know. I once believed my experience revolved around exclusion, but that's not the case. It's actually about choosing to step away and coming to the realization that I didn't lose a family. I found my freedom from one. Now, we are creating something much better together. Not necessarily louder or larger, but filled with kindness, safety, and belonging to us. If this narrative struck a chord with you, if you felt like the silent observer, the one who goes unnoticed, or the one who opted for peace instead of revenge, then I hope this offers you a bit of strength. Sometimes, the act of leaving is not a sign of weakness. It can be a profound expression of power. If you related to this experience, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who may benefit from it, and leave a comment. Have you ever had to distance yourself from family to safeguard your peace? Also, if you're interested in similar true stories, ones about resilience, recovery, and finding your voice, don't forget to subscribe. Your support allows us to continue sharing meaningful stories. Thank you for being with us. We don't need a crowd to feel we belong. We only require a single space where we can be heard.